How do? JR here. Welcome to Workshop Wednesday, not Carrick this week. We're looking at another little project that we're working on at the moment for the Stanton 7 by Atmo Esports. So if you've not come across Atmo Esports before, they are the amazing minds behind the Daymar Rally, Hurst and Hurtlocker, Stanton 7, and onward and onward. We have made trophies for them for all of these events. If you've not checked out our Daymar Rally trophies, we've done them for a few years now. We actually built a furnace to melt metal in and did these amazing metal trophies, entirely ripping off the Dakar Rally metal trophies. That was the kind of idea, because those two events are supposed to be quite similar. And then we had the Hurst and Hurtlocker, and for that we did sort of a diorama base with a Cyclone TR, one of our kit models, done up, painted in Atmo Esports colours with different people, so people holding trophies up and bottles of champagne, and on this sort of wrecked base with a wrecked dragonfly and all that kind of stuff. So that was really cool. And now we're looking at the Stanton 7 trophy, and we're trying to make each event have a very different feel of trophy. So you might have seen this trophy sort of on Atmo Esports' sites and stuff. So this is sort of like the feel that we're going for. A lot more modern, a lot more sort of modeled after sort of modern Formula 1 trophies, but in the future type thing. Obviously taking the Stanton 7 logo, which is the sort of bit up at the top here, with the year, first place, there'll be a first, second, and third trophy for this. And trying to bring colours into it, trying to bring different materials. So all of this is acrylic. So the main part of it is made up of this very, very thick 20mm clear acrylic with all this stuff etched on it and the red painted. And then we've got the 7 made up of black acrylic and white acrylic, and then the Stanton 7 on the side. So it's very simple. It'll look really nice lit up, because the bottom will be clear, so lights can come up from the bottom. So I think it's going to look, it looks so different to certainly the Daymar Rally trophies and all that kind of stuff. So it's nice to do something different. So we'll be doing a combination of lasering and CNC milling this trophy. That is because we certainly want to use a laser for these very fine details on the 7 there, out of this black acrylic. And the white acrylic will also laser, because we'll still polish these faces anyway, but the laser will give us a more polished finish when we actually cut them for these very visible edges. The main body of the trophy is a 20mm clear acrylic. Now, this is going to have to be milled, and there's a couple of reasons for this. When you laser something, lasers are not straight. A lot of people think, oh, you laser it perfectly straight. No, lasers are far from straight, and that's because in the back of the laser there is a laser tube that passes a beam about 1.5 millimeters, something like that, is the actual size of the laser dot it produces, bounces it through mirrors down into a focal lens that looks like it's the sort of head of it. So when you sort of look at a laser, it looks like there's a tiny little sort of laser about that sort of big on the end, and it's cutting. It's not. The laser tube is huge and sits in the back of the machine, and the laser light is bounced around the inside of the machine and then down that bit, and that bit that you see is just a lens, a focal lens. So that creates a focal point. Now, the focal point is literally a dot in space. So you try and line that up in the z-axis with the center of the material that you're cutting. Now, different lenses create different shapes, but effectively you end up with an hourglass cut, because it's unfocused, unfocused, focused, unfocused, unfocused. So when you're cutting thin materials, you just don't notice. When you're cutting thick materials, you really start to notice, because you actually see this very defined curve. And certainly with a 20mm acrylic, yes, our laser has the power to cut a 20mm acrylic, but it will be a very curved edge. So we will be milling it. So we've actually got that far so far. So we end up with these shapes. So we've got this shape here, which is obviously the main upright body. That's 20mm acrylic. We've got the 2 bits of 7, which is 5mm black acrylic. The outside of the 7 5mm white acrylic, and then this shape at the bottom, which again 20 mil acrylic. Now 20mm acrylic is actually quite thick. We have a fairly big piece of it lying around, left over from another job. Another thing I do really want to try and make out of this stuff is a custom water block case, PC case. Thermaltake have got this really cool open air case that is just this great big water distribution plate. I have a Thermaltake open air PC case built into this desk, and it's like, oh, as soon as I saw it, it's like, oh, that's amazing. So hopefully we might do that as another little project at some point and do a really huge distribution plate PC back, which would be really cool. So this is our CNC router cutting the acrylic out. I say about 6 or 7 passes on each one. When you're milling something, you want to go down in layers. There's no point. The faster you go, or the harder you try and chew through a material, the more heat you're producing. Heat is obviously a very bad thing when you're trying to cut a plastic, because it'll just melt and it forms globules, and that effectively gets it stuck to the bit. That was me trying to lift up the suction because it was getting a bit close, and that sort of gums up the actual cutting tool, which has the effect of blunting it, and the more you blunt it, the more heat it produces, and it suddenly spirals out of control, and you just have molten plastic flying everywhere and a very dirty cut. So you want to, whenever you're cutting anything, it's better to take your time with it. So this is just cutting one set of the 20mm parts, and it doesn't take long. It's a relatively quick cut. Acrylic does cut faster than wood, dependent on your bits that you're using. Again, you can cut wood very fast, but if you want a really good finish on it, you've got to cut it fairly slowly. So that's cool. So after we've got these bits cut out, we'll need to polish the edge, because I said before, one of the advantages of using a laser is that you do get a much more polished edge to it. Water jets are even better, but they're very expensive. So we'll have to polish these edges up. Some of these edges are getting painted, so we'll sand them rather than polish them to get a nice surface finish for the paint to adhere to. But if we get it to the point where it's mirror finished, the paint will actually struggle to stick. So we will sort of prep different surfaces differently, whether they're going to stay transparent or whether they're going to get painted. And then the writing on the piece, we'll flip back to this. The writing on the actual trophy itself, the plan is, I've sort of done this before, but we'll kind of see if it works. To do this writing here, this writing here, and this writing here will all be etched with the laser. So we'll pre-paint the surfaces and then laser through it. Now, depending on the paint, I've had this be really successful with some paints and not so successful with the other, because it sort of burns the paint. What we'll probably do is paint it and then put a coating over the paint temporarily, like a peel off, laser it, and then peel the peel off, and then that should leave the paint unharmed. So we'll do some tests with that. We've got some scrap bits of clear acrylic, so we'll get that right. And what that will mean is that what just looks like white here, we'll still get it shadowing when light passes through it, but because we'll have etched in, we'll be able to light it, and then those etched bits will light up. And that's because when you laser etch something, you're actually cutting into the material ever so slightly, maybe about 0.5 millimeter, and making that surface go really white. When you pass a light upwards, it's actually shining through the plastic and catches on all these bits that are slightly recessed into the material, which is why they glow. So the first and the 2951 and the Stanton 7 down on the base hopefully will all light up really nicely just by putting any light source underneath this. So that's the plan. That's where we are with it. We've got the black and white acrylic arriving this week, so do a quick update video of cutting those bits. And then it's the biggest challenge of this whole project is gluing the bits together. We want it to be nice and seamless. We'll be using proper acrylic glues, and I'll do a video of doing that, because you need to use like a hypodermic needle to put it on, especially with this Stanton 7 logo here. This is going to be really tricky to glue on very well, but without getting any burn around it. So that'll be exciting. So yeah, thank you for tuning in. Carrack update next week. We've done a few little things, a little teaser. We have the hanger is done, first print. Quite happy with that. And I've also done the garage, which was on my desk but isn't anymore. So we've got first prints of those two, so I'll take you through all of that. And that really only leaves us with the ramp itself, the garage's ramp, the closed hangar doors, and the rear engines. And that's all the bits that we now need that are going to join on to the fuselage. Yes, we haven't finished doing the canopy at the front, but that's fine. We've got what we need to be able to really start working on the fuselage, tidying up all that and getting the panel lines on. So we are getting there. The Carrack is firing through quite nicely at the moment. So I shall see you next week. Ta-da!